United States is detaining Russian tankers one after another. In the Atlantic, a hunt for shadows is beginning. 15 vessels under the Russian flag are trying to break through the economic blockade. They are boarded, tracked by satellites, and it seems the next target has already been identified. While Washington hunts maritime ghosts, another drama unfolds in the sky. Yet another strike on the Lviv region turned out to be a failure, and even pro-Russian sources cannot hide their disappointment. Why is the Ministry of Defense striking in vain, and what does this say about the real capabilities of the missile shield? Meanwhile, the scene looks almost medieval. Soldiers ride horses with communication terminals strapped to the animals' backs. The Russian army has invented a new format of live broadcasts from the battlefield, with Wi-Fi in the saddle and batteries and ammunition pouches. But is this improvisation or desperation? Next, the legends of the Invincible Armada return to the screens. Russia 24 shows a parade and once again claims that NATO has no chance. But is there a real tank behind the facade of propaganda? And finally, a list that makes fingers go numb. 19 Russian generals officially killed over the past 3 years, from Mariupol to Moscow, from sniper shots to explosions deep in the rear. Is this coincidence or a pattern? Who is next? Now in more detail. First, about the tanker Olena. It is no longer being searched for, it has been found. The vessel has been arrested by United States authorities. The reason is the transport of Russian oil despite sanctions. The oil was no longer headed to Europe as before, but to China, India, and Turkey. But this vessel is only one link in a long chain. It is officially listed in the Garamo database, which tracks the Shadow Fleet. And according to Greenpeace, such tankers are the main threat to marine ecology. Old, rusted, and without proper technical oversight. Over the past 2 weeks, the United States has already detained the 5th such tanker. 3 of them are directly linked to Russian oil. A coincidence? Unlikely, especially since a real hunt is now unfolding in the Atlantic. According to the New York Times, another 14 vessels are under pursuit. One of them has already been boarded, while the others changed course and began moving away from the shores of Venezuela toward Africa. American warships, according to leaks, have received clear orders: block, inspect, and in case of refusal, arrest. The tanker war has entered a phase of physical deterrence. This is no longer diplomacy, this is a chase. And here a question arises: what will happen when the first tankers try to reach the Turkish Straits, or when one of them gets too close to a European port? The United States is betting on open action, thereby challenging not only Russia, but also the countries that still continue to trade with it through gray schemes. America is no longer looking away, it is staring straight ahead. The night strike on the Lviv region was perhaps the loudest, in terms of sound, but not results. A Russian ballistic-type missile of the Oreshnik class was supposed to hit a critically important gas storage facility. According to the plan, it was meant to look like an operation of retribution, a pinpoint strike on energy infrastructure. In reality, it turned out to be a dry click. At first, Ukrainian sources reported this briefly. Then, even Z channels, which usually squeeze maximum effect out of any hit, began speaking with sour expressions. No explosion, no fire, no gas, no result. Only a crater and doubts about the adequacy of the planning. The strike hit the area near the underground Stryi storage facility, but according to experts, the missile fell short of the actual target by several hundred meters. In the reports of the Ministry of Defense, this is of course counted as a hit. On paper, the target was struck. In reality, even the transformer booths remained intact. Z channels did not hold back in their wording this time. The strike was called impotent, the most insignificant, and the main initiator was compared to a person who scares everyone by shaking his fists, but ends up punching empty air. The satire was biting because this was not just a miss, it was a miscalculation that hits reputation. Military experts whisper behind the scenes, the missiles are still there, but with each passing day, there are fewer of them. And if the second Oreshnik launched at the target already fails to produce either fire or destruction, that means there are no longer those who know how to strike accurately. It is precisely moments like these that give rise to a dangerous thing: irony within one's own ranks. When propaganda begins to joke about its own strikes, it means the crack is no longer running along the front line, but through the motivation of the elite itself. Because one failed attack is an accident, 2 are already a pattern, and what if the third turns out to be the same kind of fizzle? The key issue here is not the effect of the explosion. The key issue is the effect of distrust. And while the Ministry of Defense draws little squares and arrows in its reports, the world sees in real time how a missile flies wide. And now, to the events unfolding on the ground, or more precisely in the saddle. A satellite communications terminal on the back of a horse, a smartphone camera pointed forward, a A commander at headquarters watches what is happening in real time, while a fighter gallops across the steppe like a cyber Cossack. This is not military science fiction. This is the new reality of the Russian army. A video that spread across the internet shows how Russian troops are adapting Starlink satellite communication terminals, the very same American system, for cavalry units. Yes, you heard correctly, cavalry. The terminal is mounted on the horse's back, secured to the saddle, powered by an external battery neatly packed into a pouch. A smartphone is connected to the terminal. The phone's camera faces forward. The feed streams to headquarters. A broadcast like that on horseback. And even if it looks like an ironic YouTube clip, in reality it reflects a very serious problem. Too many tasks, too little infrastructure. Where it is impossible to lay fiber optics, establish radio communications, or hold positions, one has to go straight ahead, on a good old horse, but with Wi-Fi. Some experts call this ingenuity, others call it desperation, because Starlink is not officially sold in Russia, which means all these terminals are either brought in through gray imports, captured during combat, or used through proxy accounts. But the question is not where the terminal came from. The question is why it ended up on a horse. Somewhere in a parallel universe, this could be a funny anecdote. Russian cavalry meets an American satellite, but on the battlefield, this is no longer a joke. This is military reality, the kind in which armored vehicles did not make it, communications did not reach, but a horse always does. Such an approach is not about strength. It is about how an army with budgets measured in billions ended up being forced to mount satellite antennas on a saddle and broadcast live from an animal. And here one wants to ask not the military, but those who sit above them. If this is your army of the future, then where is the army of the present? And now let us look at what the television channel Russia 24 will tell us about the next technological miracle. On the screen there is the shine of polished armor, a ceremonial column, and a phrase delivered with a serious expression. It has no analogs. In the foreground is the Armata tank. It is once again shown on the federal channel Russia 24, and once again with the same refrain. This is the pinnacle of global tank building. The best, the most powerful, unique. But as soon as the camera goes behind the scenes, questions begin to multiply. Because Armata is not a tank, it is a symbol of how one can show the same prototype for 10 years, and at the same time claim that it is already almost in service. The commentators do not hold back. It sounds as if read from a manual. Neither the United States nor NATO nor Europe has anything even close. Armata is the future. It is already here. But here's the problem. It is present at parades. In battles, it is not. And when footage from exercises appears, the question arises, is this that very single experimental unit? Or has something already gone into series production? One of the journalists, Matvey Popov, says in the report, I myself was inside the tank. This is a machine of the future. And of course, we believe it. Only why has this machine of the future not been seen on any of the fronts where Russia has been conducting the largest military operation since the Second World War for a third year already? Analysts in the West assess Armata as technically interesting, but at the same time emphasize that there is no mass production, the cost is exorbitant, and reliability under real combat conditions is questionable. Armata is like a concept car at an auto show. It is displayed, it is admired, it shines, it has futuristic internals. But then a year passes, 2, 5, and in the dealerships there are still the same old models. And while a neat column of armored vehicles once again rolls across the federal broadcast, the viewer is once again told, the tank that does not exist in the troops is our main advantage. But even the most perfect picture has an expiration date. Because sooner or later, a reasonable question arises. If Armata is so powerful, then where is it? Why does every report about battles end with mentions of T-90 tanks and even T-72, but not Armata? And if there is no answer, then belief disappears as well. Because parade armor does not protect against a real strike. And even the shiniest facade does not hide the emptiness inside if the substance exists only in a television script. And against this background, the next topic is felt especially sharply. Because what comes next is not about equipment, it is about people. About those who commanded this army, and who will no longer be able to give a single order. The list of generals killed over the past 3 years looks like a memorial plaque that no one would want to unveil. 19 names. 19 people holding the rank of Major General or Lieutenant General eliminated since the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine. And this is only those whose names became known. Only those about whom at least something was said officially. First on this list is Andrei Sukovetsky, deputy commander of the 41st Army. He was killed in February of 2022, a sniper bullet in the Chernihiv region, essentially at the very beginning of the war. This was a case where even the Kremlin could not keep the fact of his death quiet. The man's position was simply too high. Next comes a chain that cannot be dismissed as coincidence. Oleg Mityayev, spring of 2022, Mariupol, killed by Azov fighters. General Vladimir Frolov, March of the same year, also in Mariupol, sniper fire. Andrei Simonov, April near Kharkiv, an artillery strike. Every month a new name, and these are not just generals somewhere out there. These are commanders of frontline armies, deputy district commanders, heads of headquarters. These are people who, in theory, should be far behind the line of fire. In practice, they found themselves under precise attack. May of 2022, Kanamat Botashev, a legendary combat pilot, major general. His Su-25 was shot down in the skies over Ukraine. Why a general was personally in the cockpit remains a mystery to this day, or perhaps the answer is simply too uncomfortable. Then, Roman Kutuzov, June, Luhansk region. According to reports, killed near Popasna. Dmitry Ulyanov, February of 2023, killed while commanding a regiment of mobilized troops. Sergei Goryachev, June, Primorsk, officially an artillery strike. And this is only the first half of the list. Oleg Sokov, lieutenant general, deputy commander of the Southern Military District, killed in July in Berdyansk, a strike on a reserve command post. Vladimir Zavadsky, November, near Krinky in the Kherson region. Igor Trifonov, December, killed in combat. Not only combat commanders are dying, Ildar Saidov was killed, a major general of the customs service sent to the war. Pavel Klemenko was killed, commander of a guards brigade. Igor Kirillov was killed, head of the troops of radiation, chemical, and biological protection. Cause of death, an explosion in Moscow. His driver was killed along with him. Yaroslav Moskalik was killed, deputy head of the operational directorate of the general staff. Mikhail Gudkov, deputy commander-in-chief of the Navy, killed in a missile strike. The last in this sequence is Fanil Sarvarov. He was killed in December of last year in Moscow. A booby-trapped car exploded. This list is not just a sequence of names. It is a system losing its generals not during exercises, not in retirement, but on the front line under bombs, bullets, drone strikes, and missiles. And if one or two cases can be explained as coincidence, 19 already form a pattern. Some will say they were doing their duty, others will say they fell victim to carelessness, but the essence lies elsewhere. In modern high-intensity warfare, command personnel are supposed to be beyond reach. Here, they are being eliminated deliberately, headquarters after headquarters, commander after commander. What does this mean? It means the enemy knows where they are, that it has intelligence, precise information, and means of strike. And worst of all, it has priorities. Thank you for watching and reading until the end. If you feel that something is hidden behind this stream of news, you are not alone. With each passing day, it becomes harder to distinguish an official report from an imitation, and a victory briefing from an attempt to cover up defeat. That is precisely why we continue to speak honestly, without gloss, without filters, as it is. See you in the next edition. Take care. There is no time left for illusions.